This is Morgan Freeman. If you enjoy listening to The Edge, support them by subscribing to The Edge on iTunes, Stitcher, and you can listen through the iHeartRadio app. Get busy listening.
This is The Edge.
The advantage it means.
Hey, look, I just spit on me for no reason.
That's horrible.
Is there some comfort in uncertainty, do you think?
You're a degenerate.
Because Australian Shepherds need action.
Wow. Yeah.
This is The Edge.
That's a self-loathing term that I use.
Oh, got it.
edge-show.com.
Thanks for being here. Mark Thompson here, welcoming you to our program that finishes out the political season. So we've dedicated this hour to, it's a little less than an hour, I guess, to politics and the election that was just completed. And we're going to be talking to the ABC News White House correspondent and national correspondent. He's a multiple Emmy and Edward R. Murrow award-winning journalist. His name is Jim Avila. And Jim has just literally come off the reporting trail where he was in Nevada reporting on the race there. Some thoughts about why the polls are so far off and what was missed by the media and how media coverage might have been a co-conspirator in this race for the presidency as opposed to just being an objective reporting party. Jim is quite thoughtful and reflective and revealing, I think, in this episode. So thank you for being here. By the way, we take a call from a listener in this episode, something we've never done before. He contacted us on our website, which is edge-show.com. There's a place for comments there. You can leave a comment. And we contacted him because we thought he might be able to contribute to the conversation. So a little something experimental today, too. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your positive comments on the show. Thanks for all the ways you support us. And now, Jim Avila on The Edge.
This is The Edge. edge-show.com.
It is the day after a historic general election. Welcome to the show, and welcome to the show. I'm welcoming everyone to the show, and then I'm saying welcome to the show, meaning all of you please welcome to the show.
Now I'm thoroughly confused.
I know.
White House correspondent, national correspondent for ABC, Jim Avila is with us. Come on, Jim Avila.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah. Wow.
Jim, look at, he's a little tired today.
Well, it was a long night.
Yeah.
Jim literally just got in, that is, flew into the airport and then took a car to our show here to talk to us about what happened last night. You were in Nevada?
I was in Nevada, and I was covering both the Nevada election and the election there, and also the Hispanic Latino reaction around the country from there.
Nevada was viewed as a Latino stronghold.
And in fact, it did well. Nevada elected the first Hispanic senator from there, the first Hispanic congressman from there. They were both Democrats. And Hillary Clinton won in Nevada, but that's 6 electoral votes.
Let's all go to Nevada.
Yeah.
The election, of course, was remarkable for so many reasons. Let me start first with the polls. The polling that led up to this general election all was pointing toward this 3 or 4 point lead that Hillary Clinton had. When I say all, I understand there's an LA Times poll that actually had Trump out in front and a dead heat at worst. But that was the thing that was the most remarkable aspect to last night for me, is that the election bore no relationship to everything that we'd heard leading up to it.
Yes, and we have pollsters, and we were 3 to 5 points off, it looks like, almost the entire election. This morning there was a long email from the ABC pollster who talked to us about why. It appears as though there's a thing called weighting, which they didn't give enough weight to the Republican vote. They didn't, and what's interesting to me, and I'm still confused about it, is there weren't more white Republicans, working class white Republicans, who came out to vote. They were about the same, but more of them voted for Trump than they voted for Romney. So I'm not sure why that makes any difference in the polling, but that's what I'm hearing.
So you're saying that those Republicans who came out for Romney also came out, but in this case, more of them voted for Trump, whereas some of them must have been siphoned off by Obama or...
It's not just even white Republicans. It's white working class people. The same amount of that demographic came out, But last time, more of them voted for the Democrat than this time. More of them voted this time for the Republican than they did last time. So he did very well among that disenfranchised majority than Romney did. And I think the other explanation that I've heard, and I'm not a pollster, so I don't know. I mean, I report what the polls say. The other thing pollsters are saying today is that Republicans, especially white male Republicans, are less likely to stop and talk to a pollster. They don't want to share their views. They don't trust the media pollsters, and especially in exit polling, they don't represent as much as others do. And that may have been also an issue, is that there was that secret hidden group of people who either didn't say they were going to vote for Trump or didn't talk to pollsters at all. But when they got in that voting booth where nobody could see them, and I had heard this before the election, and it concerned me that was what may happen, is that people would vote for Trump who never said they would and who were hiding the fact that they would.
Well, two things prior to the election. One is that in polling, it was a fact. In fact, it was a fact that was demonstrated some months ago that in telephone polls, all the information was skewing incorrectly because people were afraid to say that they were voting for Trump. There was such a stigma associated with voting for Trump that they were resistant to admit they were voting for Trump. And for that reason, this is a known problem in the polling process. For months, that's been the case. So they went to other ways to poll. They looked at texting. They looked at online polling. And in those polls, Trump did better.
Yeah, but those aren't accepted by most reputable media. Those are the polls that Trump was always citing.
I see.
We get memos. When those polls come out, we get a memo throughout ABC which says,
don't pay attention to these.
Those are not trustworthy polls. We cannot quote those polls. We cannot use those polls. We can only use polls of a certain that have, I don't know all the qualifications.
Sure.
But that have a certain pedigree. And online polls, which, the problem with online polls, and I do understand this, is that you can go back online and do it over and over and
like
over.
American Idol.
It's
you can
Dancing with the Well, I'm from ABC. It's Dancing with the Stars.
Oh, sorry, that's right. Yeah.
It's just like that. Yeah.
But the other point you're making is right on, it would seem, which is that these people who feel the system has ignored them, they're angry, they're disenfranchised, they're all those things.
And they hate the media.
They hate the media, and they associate pollsters with that same business. Right. Screw you. I'm either going to give you bad information or no information, probably the latter.
And they're calling them shadow voters today. These are the shadow voters we didn't know about and didn't talk to. That's one problem. The other problem is and I just read a very good article about this, and is that in Politico is the false equivalency issue. We bend over backwards, and we get criticized for not being fair, okay? And what journalists don't realize is that equal is not the same as fair. You can be fair without being equal. I think it's fair to say that the problems that Donald Trump has, his veracity or lack of it, his problems with taxes, with women, are not equivalent to the problems that Hillary Clinton had. And if you watched television, or you watched cable, you watched cable TV, or even if you watched the small amount of time we have on network news, it would appear as though they were equal. And there's a lot of criticism today from Democrats, especially, and from the big thinkers, who analyze what the media does, who believe that the New York Times, which certainly did a lot of reporting on Donald Trump, but also was the one who broke all these stories about Hillary Clinton. From WikiLeaks to the emails, and then continued to ask. So then the last week, last week before the election, she got pounded.
Well,
until Sunday, right?
Yeah.
The day before and on Sunday afternoon, when nobody's watching the news, suddenly Comey comes out and says, "Never mind." It's not true. That didn't leave a lot of time to recover, and they were reluctant to go back and talk about the emails again on the campaign trail. They were in their closing argument phase, which you don't go back and bring up the emails again. So it left them in a difficult position and may have knocked her down some in the polls. There's lots of valid criticism, and we'll go back and look, I'm sure, at ABC and every place else about what we did with that. I mean, I know I was concerned about the issue of false equivalency all along, that every time you said something bad about Donald Trump, you had to say something bad about Hillary Clinton, whether they were equal or not. And that's an issue that the media has to watch out for. And I can tell you, if you said something bad, whether it's on social media, and I don't give my opinion on social media. I'm not giving really I am giving a bit of my opinion now on our coverage. But what we did, no matter what I said that was critical of Donald Trump, the first thing I would get was some troll attaching his or her voice to saying, yeah, but Hillary Clinton is this, or Hillary Clinton does that, or Hillary Clinton, and it's never Hillary, it's Killary. So that was the problem that reporters faced, is that we were under constant attack from both sides, but again, false equivalency, mostly from the Trump followers.
Yeah, and it's funny, Heather, when Jim tells that story, you think, well, you're not going to get that guy who wrote Killary. That person's not going to be served by any information that you have. Undecided voters might be. But then again, I suppose if you're a journalist, you're just there to serve the information up in as neutral a way as you can, in a manner that will allow the public that's consuming that information to make certain determinations and judgments.
Well, I post what's interesting to me, whether it's funny or new, or valid. I want it to be I want it to be vetted. I don't post from all these, and I'm not going to name any, but I don't even post from what millennials believe are, Reddit or any of those type of things. I don't even post from BuzzFeed. Okay, I don't post that stuff. I'm not confident of its validity and its vetting. I repost the Washington Post, the New York Times, maybe the USA Today, what I grew up with as credible journalism, but what I get, and the reason why, you say that it doesn't matter to respond to Killary, the guy using Killary. The problem is the guy using Killary has 6 followers. The reason why they're trolling me and putting on nonsense posts, about Hillary Clinton killed, is responsible for whatever bad happened that day, is because I have thousands of followers. And so that's what irritates me, and that is when I will block people and will kick them off and delete their posts.
Heather, explain to Grandpa here, how Twitter works, okay? Now, if the guy who wrote Killary harasses Jim Avila, who is a distinguished and award-winning White House correspondent, national correspondent for ABC, and this guy who's in his basement somewhere in wherever, eating Cheetos and trolling Jim Avila, why does he show up in a higher profile way to Jim if Jim just leaves him alone?
Because if you open up Jim's tweet and then you see all the people that replied to what he said or what he posted, then you see this guy writing back to you, and then they immediately start, I believe is what you're saying, they immediately start all writing, including everybody's Twitter handles, in these basically just whole rows of trolling.
And also, isn't it true that, so I pushed out a post on whatever the New York Times has said today, and this guy responds, just replies. All of my followers see what he posted on my, which is thousands, as opposed to if he just put it on his wall or on his whatever it's called, that 6 people would see it.
Oh, that's true. On Facebook you'd see it, but on Twitter you wouldn't see it unless you clicked on replies.
Well,
right?
There's a lot of different. They're changing the algorithm so much. Sometimes I'll see that Mark replied to someone I don't even know that I don't follow, and or while you were away, what you missed.
Oh yeah,
so you can kind of catch back up. So I don't know why they show me and how they pick who replied to what that they think I might want to see.
It's kind of off point. I didn't mean to get off on that, but I was just trying to understand how to manage this, because it's interesting that you allude to that in all of this. Clearly, there was a time, and it was even talked about, when the media was feeling as though, wow, we've skipped over Donald Trump on our way to Hillary Clinton. We've let him shake off a bunch of stuff. It wasn't ABC or NBC or anyone. You felt it. and journalists sort of began to crank up the heat a little bit. I think it was after the Matt Lauer thing, after the Matt Lauer, sit on my lap and let me rub your belly type interview that he did with Donald Trump, where he hammered Hillary Clinton, but Trump was,
right.
I think that's when I thought journalism got the memo. But you know what? None of that matters, because in the end, the people who turned out were ready to turn out against her. She was viewed as a candidate with a lot of baggage, it seems to me. It was a repudiation of the system. It was a repudiation of business as usual. Mm-hmm. And that was the message that was sent.
Yeah, and I think, the Democrats have some to blame here, and that is that, in my view, and this is perspective from me, period, not my organization, the organization I work for. It appears to me that it was Hillary's turn. The Democrats decided it was Hillary Clinton's turn. Yeah. That she was a good soldier. She didn't disrupt things when Obama won in 2008. She got on board. She helped, and it was her turn. And they did everything they could despite 30 to 40 years of public exposure to what she called the right-wing conspiracy, but certainly to right-wing attackers that whether valid or not, damaged her in a big way. So I don't necessarily think that I think she was, the problem with the Clintons is that they're lawyers and they go right up to the edge, okay? But they really have not, in my view, ever broken the law, except for Bill, when he had the Monica Lewinsky thing and he lied. That was an issue. But she has not broken the law. Now, she may have done things that you don't agree with, like staying with her husband, but, that's the personal decision. Everybody makes that personal decision. But she had 30 years of people hitting her and attacking her, and there were negatives built because of that, whether it's valid or not. She was the target for 30 years. And the Democrats should have, in my view, have said, valid or not, she's a damaged candidate. She's been damaged, and she's going to have difficulty getting a big part of the American population to warm up to her. And it's been said, and I tend to agree, that almost any other Democratic candidate could have beaten Donald Trump.
To your point, I can see how not a lot of women could connect with Hillary. I didn't even really, aside from being women and being excited about that. There was never like when Obama was running, there was that connection. You felt, and he's my president, he's our president. And I don't know, she never really connected with me.
Did you see her concession speech this morning by any chance?
I have yet to be able to watch it.
So gracious in the right tone, huh?
Right.
I saw a clip of it.
And she showed emotion.
Yeah.
It appeared as though she was truly hurt.
Yeah.
And disappointed, and admitted that she dropped the ball for people who her ascendancy meant a lot, to the girls and women of America.
I saw the clip about when she said to our girls, and
right.
I loved that, but I haven't been able to watch it.
If that Hillary Clinton would show up, you might get more of an Obama feeling, but she's so guarded. Again, this is not necessarily her fault.
She's been attacked a lot.
Been attacked for 30 years. So she is scared to let it down in any way, and let her guard down. Today, she did let her guard down because, it's probably over. Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody believes she'll be back in the public eye much longer, or certainly run for public office, national public office. So it appeared as though, the feelings were raw and something that would connect to somebody. The best connector probably is Obama, but Joe Biden is also quite good at that. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and he is not, he says things, he says bad things, and he does bad things, but people view him as a human being.
Apparently, that's not a bad thing this year, saying bad things and doing bad things.
Yeah.
We might have really missed the perfect candidate for the time.
Yeah. It's true, that emotion, even in that little clip I saw, it's true. It was so much different than all her debates where everything was just kind of canned, and all those responses and the nodding, and it's just
right.
Kind of knew it was
and
coming.
the laugh that seems fake.
Exactly.
She was robotic at times, very clearly choreographed and studied in her movements, as you say, in her laugh, in her head nod or whatever. And I think Jim says it straight when he says that, you know, she had to worry that everything she did was just on a granular level pulled apart.
And I think the other surprise that is surprising journalists today and causing us to second guess ourselves, if we're honest about it, is that we're not connected enough to the guy who hasn't had a raise in 15, 20 years. I mean, I live in Los Angeles. You know, I live well. Most of the people in D.C. that I know live very well. And, you know, we do not get out enough. Most of the reporting is from New York or D.C. I mean, I spent 4 years there covering the White House. And you would go out with the president, but that's in a bubble. On my 2020 duties, I actually get out to those places, to Trailer Park America, and sit and talk to those people, but mostly about different things. Mostly about, you know, what's bad has happened to them and some murder or something on 2020. But we don't do enough. I don't think any of us was connected enough, or is connected enough, to the people who are disenfranchised. Now, I don't think they're the only ones disenfranchised. I think when you focus on white working class men who work in the coal mines and their industry, the coal industry is past its time, and needs to be. Their jobs are going away, and they're going away for good reason, because it pollutes the air. But those guys are not the only ones who feel disenfranchised. African Americans over here in South Central are disenfranchised and are not enjoying all the things that we're enjoying, and certainly Hispanics who work so hard to reach the middle class and who are raising families and go to church and do all those things, but they don't have their paper. Those folks are disenfranchised too. And I think that because of where I come from, I was born in East Los Angeles. I mean, I make an effort to be connected to those folks, but I don't make a huge effort to be connected to the guy living in North Dakota.
But as you break down those demos that you just went through, who showed up for Donald Trump? The disenfranchised coal worker that you're talking about, obviously. Did Latinos show up for him? They showed up
They showed up more than we expected.
Yeah, I mean, people thought that he wasn't going to get much of a Latino vote at all.
Right, and I think he got about between a quarter and a third.
Right.
But Latinos it's a broad base of folks. There are certainly Cuban Americans in Florida who have been traditionally Republican. There's a lot of small business people in America who are Latino, and I know a good friend of mine is the head of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and he represents a group, and they for the first time endorsed a Democrat this time. They endorsed Hillary Clinton, but that's rare.
But they're family values type.
They're family value voters, and so, and they also are interested in the economy. So if I don't see how you can dismiss what he says about our people. I don't see how you can do that, but apparently some people do.
Do you want to meet a Trump voter? Heather, you feel as though your family might have had some Trump voters. Is that true in your family, any Trump voters?
It's true.
Did you ever talk to them about what sparked them to Donald Trump?
No.
I see. You really you drew the curtain on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't have more to add.
No, I've got somebody who voted for Donald Trump, and it's just coincidental that I was going to bring him on the air with us because he is a listener to our show. He's a regular listener to the show.
Oh, good.
And he was distressed that we were spending the first 10 to 15 minutes of the show lately talking about politics. Now, the reason I do that is because I felt this is an extraordinary election. It was so much in the consciousness that I felt to not do it is to sort of deny something that's going on in the culture, and it's going on in such a big way. And so I called it the Fast 15 with Michael Schor. Mm-hmm. That was also my way of going, hey, it's 15 minutes. You don't like it? Skip ahead 15 minutes. It's like a regular episode of The Edge. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
I was with Randy on that one.
Really? You didn't like the politics either?
No, I didn't like that it was 15 minutes before every show. Did you say skip, though? You didn't.
I don't tell people skip, but I mean, you don't want to tell them skip.
That's what you do.
Not when Michael's in the room.
Yeah, it's true. Randy, can you hear us?
I can hear you great. Was that the lovely Heather laughing?
Hi, it was.
Joy to listen to, Heather.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You're very lucky that you're here when we have a distinguished guest, Jim Avila, who's the White House correspondent for ABC, national correspondent for ABC. He's an award-winning journalist. We've been talking a bit about what happened as far as journalism is concerned this election and the media this election.
I've seen his work.
Oh,
yeah. Jim, you can say hello to Randy if you like.
How you doing, Randy? Let me have
Very
it.
good, Jim.
So, Randy, you voted for Trump, didn't you?
I did vote for Trump.
Tell everybody a little something about you. Are you a disenfranchised white voter who feels the system hasn't heard them?
You know, I guess I started off as not particularly a white voter per se, but I started off as a disadvantaged California voter. Being conservative in California for the last 30 years, I really haven't had much of a political effect on the way things have gone in the state, as you well know. So I've already been marginalized over the last 30 years.
Yeah, California's a liberal state and progressive
it's not
state.
So much liberal. Yeah, it's progressive, but the politics go beyond, as you know, just labels like liberal or progressive. The politics go to where the power is, what the cost of doing business is, where the money goes, and what gets fixed, what doesn't get fixed. And much of this gets the label of progressive or gets the label of democratic or what have you, but it really comes down to just hardball politics and who's got their hand in the pot. And that's really what California is about. I know we come off as being the liberal state and everything, and we certainly have liberal policies, and we're up there with energy policies and things like that. But beyond that, if you look below the surface and you look at where your dollars are going and what's being spent on the budget, it's a whole other story.
Randy, I just got two words for you. Jerry Brown.
What about Brown?
Well, he has cut the costs. You know, he drives around in a Rambler. He's cut the costs of government in California, rebalanced the budget after a Republican.
Well, it would appear on the surface if that's the case. But if you look a little bit deeper, just on this last election, you'll see that there's an additional $9 billion school bond just got floated. Now, I've been here long enough to know before many moons ago we had the lottery, and the big moniker on the lottery was, or the big slogan was, "And our kids win too." Well, I've seen nothing but bond issues, nothing but lottery issues. Rob Reiner's cigarette tax going to preschool, all of the best intentions, and yet our schools are abysmal. If you look at what's going on, you can call it progressive, you can call it whatever you want in the intentions. This is the biggest money grab that's ever happened. It goes right down to the bullet train and everything else.
So you moved from California, didn't you, Randy?
I left California in 2005. I moved to Arizona. Basically, we were priced out of it. I have a total of 4 kids. My 2 oldest one went to UCLA, the other one went to UCSD. And then the other 2 kids, I had a boy in Irvine, and the other kid was graduating from Palm Desert High School. And Irvine was running me in-state tuition, and he had a partial scholarship at the time. It was running me $25,000 a year for in-state tuition.
That's crazy, huh? You had to cash out to support your family.
Yeah, I'm looking around at my neighborhood, and it was a middle-class neighborhood that we moved into in the low 2s back in '94, and already it's up to $550. So I looked at my wife. I said, "Would you spend $500,000 to live in this neighborhood?" She said, "No way." So I looked at her. She looked at me and said, "And we got to go." We sold the house for $500,000, went to Arizona, and got an unbelievable home.
Yeah. And spent the rest of the money on those ungrateful kids. Hey, would you have voted for Bernie Sanders over Donald Trump?
You know, here's the thing about Bernie Sanders, and you'll say, well, Trump's the same polarizing figure. I'm not a big label guy, and I hate to see people vilified and fingers pointed always, and it's always the 1%er. It's this guy's fault, and if you just redistribute, take this guy's money, everything will be better. I've been hearing this for 1,000 years. It's always been this way throughout history. You point at the other guys, and that way you don't have to solve problems. It's easy. It's low-hanging fruit to castigate another group.
So I'm sorry. So would you have voted for him though?
Over Hillary, yes, absolutely.
No. Well, it was. Yeah, I'm saying if you're
over Trump, I would have probably voted for Biden though. I think Biden would have been a shoo-in.
Now that's what Jim Avila was saying before. You don't know if you said that, Jim, but you were kind of alluding to it.
Well, I was saying that Biden would win.
Yeah, you said that Biden would win, yeah. And, I don't know, but it seems to me increasingly the younger Bush we came out of, he was the one who really made me realize it, although I think it goes back and you go look at Reagan, but, in the 60s you didn't have this as much. And that's the cult of personality. That's the charisma, not only telegenic, but that je ne sais quoi. There's something about the guy, and that's why the media fell in love with him. He'd say anything. Of course, so from a substantive standpoint, he was a wild card, and there was just some reason we were watching him.
It's like having flames on television or a car chase. You never know what's going to happen, and people are drawn to the flame, and they were drawn to the flame of Donald Trump because he was entertaining to watch. We won't know if he's entertaining to watch as president, but he probably will be for a while until,
it might wear thin very quickly. You would be remiss in not really looking below the surface here. You take a guy like me, I'm 65, I got 4 kids, and fly below the radar. I don't answer polls.
There you go.
You don't answer.
We were talking about you earlier.
Do you get called? Have you been called? And what do you do? And what do you do when you get called?
Well, immediately what they're asking you to say. I just don't have time for it. Thank you very much.
So you just shine them on.
I don't hang up the phone. I'm just always say I don't have time to thank you very much.
Yeah, but the point is you don't give them any kind of poll response that they can use anyway. Yeah.
It's even worse for my wife because she's much more hard-nosed about these things than I am.
Did your wife vote for Trump?
Yes, she did. Don't get us wrong. If I had to tell you what the choice was here, I'll tell you flat out. I would tell all my friends, this was a crap sandwich. There was one side of the sandwich that wasn't so shitty.
So, Randy, let me ask you a couple questions about Donald Trump.
Sure.
And I'm going to skip the obvious. I'm not even going to ask you about how he treats women. I'm not going to ask you about, how he is a sexual predator and admitted to it. I'm not going to ask you those things. I'm going to ask you about Obamacare. So he says he's going to change it. But he didn't tell you during this entire election what he was going to do. He just said he's going to be better. He's going to throw it out.
Jim, I sent that campaign about 8 months ago. I sent him 2 suggestions regarding that and one regarding school choice. I'm sure I didn't send him enough money, so I'm sure they're not going to take it. But I will tell you about Obamacare, and I'll tell you where its first and biggest flaw is.
But wait. Don't tell me what's wrong with it, okay? I'm set that aside. For the sake of this discussion, Obamacare is terrible. What did Donald Trump tell you he's going to do to replace Obamacare? What do you believe he's going to do to make?
Well, the first thing he was going to do, or he says he's going to do, and it's been bannered about by Republicans since it came about, and that is cross-state insurance exchanges. I currently buy auto insurance from Hartford out of Massachusetts. I can get my auto insurance from AARP and 12th Ameriprise, whatever. But I can't buy my health insurance from anybody but in-state, Anthem.
And you know why that is the case, is that because the insurance companies wouldn't play ball unless that was granted, unless they got the exclusive inside their state. So what you're saying is that in order to do what you're saying that he's going to do, Donald Trump will have to get the insurance companies out of providing the money for medical care, out of the system, which is what Hillary Clinton wanted to do when Bill Clinton was president. You're talking about a single-payer system.
No. I said a multi-state exchanges. In other words, let's say you wanted to buy your
But the
insurance.
Insurance companies won't do that.
Well, they won't do it under whatever's been proffered before, but I do believe if there's an economic incentive and it makes sense for them, if they can afford to do it on automobile insurance, I believe that they can find a way to provide cross-national insurance. It's a larger pool. It's a risk pool. Everything gets mixed together. It seems to me the more numbers, the better when you're calculating actuarial studies on a group of people.
God love you, Randy, and I believe, and you're entitled to what you believe. And you can believe that all day. But the fact is the insurance companies said no. They won't do it.
I've never heard it broached as cross-state insurance exchanges. Never heard it. Maybe you're right, Jim.
I'm just saying that they were at the table when ACA was brought in. And the reason why the Democrats went with this is because they thought nobody would accept single payer. Single payer was a step too far. So they brought the insurance companies in and said, okay, we're going to include you in it. And they did. And the insurance companies said, we need to do this.
So there's actually a very simple solution in place across most of the other countries in the world, and it's something that's never been tried here, other than many, many years ago. When Obamacare ACA came around, they mandated, and the thought was to provide 20 million more people with medical care, access to hospitals and doctors. So that was the mandate. That happened almost immediately. You increased demand by 20 million people. Do you know that you did not increase it? One more doctor, one more nurse, one more physician's assistant, but you put into the system 20 million more demanding service.
That premise is not right, Randy. There weren't 20 million more people demanding service. Those people still got sick. They just went to the emergency room, which cost you more. So it wasn't 20 million more people needing more doctors. 20 million people still needed doctors when they were uninsured.
Jim, you're right, but that's the fact is when you now take them out of the emergency room, which was inadequate to meet their needs, and now you put them in the general pool, there weren't those doctors in place to handle the additional demand. So what you have is you have a shortage of doctors, shortage of health care. You have tremendous waits for all doctors now across the board. And, of course, when you have a shortage of anything, economics usually dictates that the price goes up and the cost goes up. You have fewer providers and more demanders. So all I was suggesting is if you look at other countries in the world, starting in high school, they're already, by the 11th and 12th grade, they're offering OChem, they're offering pre-nursing, they're offering pre-medical. In Mexico, you get your medical degree at 22, 23 years of age. You don't go through 4 years of undergraduate and then have to go into medical school for another 4 years, then another 3 years of specialty. I've got a son who's in his residency now. He's 37 years old. He'll be out at 39. The system is so improperly skewed. If you could just cut off 3 years of undergrad, you'd add an extra 10 to 15% of working years of your doctors. Plus, you could get many more into the system because we have a tremendous amount of nurses and doctors retiring right now. So the concept of increasing the demand through Obamacare or single payer, whatever method you want to use, it's flawed if you don't increase the supply of healthcare practitioners.
Well, I always felt it was a bit of an insurance company grab anyway. We got to wrap up. Randy, good to talk to you.
Jim, I do like your work very much.
Well, thank you very much.
Sorry we didn't hear you talk more.
Well, you know
what we need to do is some
Be good,
listening.
guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
He's a really nice guy.
Listener Randy, very knowledgeable guy.
And that's what I'm talking about, that's one of the things we've got to do more of as journalists is get out there and talk to these folks.
If this gentleman, I'm judging him as being a really nice guy, sounds like my dad, 4 kids, hardworking guy. If maybe the media, and I shouldn't blame the media, but I feel like every Trump supporter I saw had some T-shirt with some woman saying, grab my vagina, some hicks with guns.
I didn't see the woman that said, grab my vagina.
I'll find the picture for you. It's a woman that said, she wore her T-shirt that said, Trump can grab my pussy, or whatever she said, or my vagina. Yeah. But, it's like this sensationalism.
If you're rich and famous.
Yeah, there you go. You just do it. You're saying, why didn't you get a window on people like Randy as opposed to...
How about this perfectly eloquent...
He won't talk to us. He won't even answer the phone for anybody.
Yeah, there you go.
But, that we should make more... Look, I'm not...
It would have just been nice to see something more Trump supporters like that.
Yeah, but let me just say this about that.
Okay.
The evening news and even the most comprehensive snapshot in an evening newscast, the Jim Avila ABC World News Tonight, they give you a sense of it. But when the meta sense of it is reflected in polls that show Hillary Clinton 3 to 4% ahead and all, I don't mean we default to this polls issue because one of the things that was most disturbing in this story is that we were all, just consumers of media, misled by the information going up to this election. And as Jim says, the polling had huge gaps in it this time. They're going to have to rework and retool the way they do that.
I think a lot of, I think a lot of us in the media, a lot of us on the coasts look at Donald Trump and see the circus and thought there's no way. Mm-hmm. There's no way that America is going to really vote for this guy. Look, I thought it was like National Hockey League, all right? They fill up stadiums all the time. The National Hockey League. But the same people keep going over and over and over again, and that the National Hockey League can't get on a real sports network because there's not enough people watching them. And we thought, I don't want to speak for we. I thought that Trump filling up a stadium in Tampa meant nothing because it's the same people. It's the same small group of people, and we're proven totally wrong.
And that's exactly what all of us thought. And when I say all of us, I'm saying that's what we were spoon-fed by pundits as well. Well, Donald Trump can certainly fill these arenas, but when it comes to actually getting the vote on Election Day, that's a much different story. He has no ground game. Hillary Clinton has a great ground game, blah, blah, blah.
And I didn't think that, I thought that people watching even in South Dakota, North Carolina, in the rural places of America, I thought those people had the same sensibilities and looked at the guy in the same way that I did. Not so much his policies, because I don't think he gave us any, but that his act was entertainment and nothing more. And I had great faith in the American people that they would see through that. I was mistaken, and I'm not saying anything bad about the American people, because we get the government we vote for, we deserve, and they wanted him, and that's their choice. But I did not, mea culpa. I did not see it coming. I didn't think it was happening. I think, again, going back to what we said at the beginning, the media made a couple of mistakes. The polling is a mistake. The false equivalency issue is a mistake. We're taught from the beginning to be fair. Fair does not mean equal time. We don't have to be, when it's, ABC has said, like in global warming, we no longer have to, that issue's gone. We no longer have to interview, 3 scientists who are for it and find 3 scientists who believe it isn't true, because those 3 scientists who don't believe it's true are wrong, and we don't have to do that anymore. And I think we should have adopted something close to that when it came to the false equivalency of Donald Trump hasn't paid any taxes, hasn't revealed his taxes, has said that he has assaulted women, and women have come to us and said, yes, he did exactly what he said he did to me. All those things, we made a false equivalency with Hillary Clinton's email issue, where she was exonerated by the FBI, not once, but twice. And I think that was a mistake.
I think you really stated it well. When Jim says, I thought it was a little like hockey, what a great, great way to put it, because we just, we had no sense that there was this anger out there, disgust, and Hillary Clinton is part of that machine. She's viewed as part of that machine. But I think if she had come across this also goes back to what we were saying before, and we will wrap up here in a moment, but if she'd come across with a greater sincerity, with a greater authenticity, maybe that's the word.
It is.
I think she could have broken through a bit. I would have said, hey, go with it. Hey, look, I know this is a problem for a lot of Americans. I understand. I wish I could do something to, undo this vision. I understand. I've been involved in public life and in public service for a long time, and they're going to be sticky situations, and maybe I did the right thing, and maybe I didn't, whatever she puts it. But you didn't really get that. She doesn't have an across-the-fence style. She has an across-the-lectern style.
Yeah, she also needed to say, and I would ask Heather to chime in on this, because I always thought her effort, and I understand it, but her effort not to talk about what Bill Clinton did to her in the 90s hurt her. That there was this wall put up and she didn't appeal to women. But if she just would have said, my husband nearly ruined our marriage, was an adulterer, and we almost got divorced, but I love him, and this is what we've done to correct this issue, and we're back together. I think she needed to address that in some way.
I would agree with that. I also just had this conversation with my girlfriend. I was a very, very young woman when that happened. And even back then, or my thought was, when she didn't address anything, I thought this is a business. This is a business relationship. And it didn't surprise me at all when she ran for president however many years later. That was my thought back then.
Would she have been more relatable to you?
I wonder, probably. It's hard because I was so young and I didn't have any life experience and any relationship experience. So maybe through the years, perhaps.
It sounds to me as though maybe that cake the Hillary Clinton cake was baked already in your mind. Doesn't sound like there's anything she could have said necessarily
That's
could have
not true.
undone that.
That's
really?
not
You
true.
think you think
Yeah.
I and this is my own personal bias, I kind of feel when it comes to marriages and who's staying with who and what degree of fooling around people tolerate, I kind of give people a broad area of real estate on that. It takes
I think you do, but I don't know if you're
the average guy.
If you're the average woman, I mean, that's
She
didn't inspire. Even she inspired a good group of there were a lot of women who were inspired by her, but there also was a large group of women, many of them millennial, and many of them younger than what as you're talking about, Heather, that were not around for that experience, who were not inspired by her, and then because she didn't touch them in some way.
Yeah.
And I just wonder what in her, the thing in her life that might have made her more human is what her husband did to her, and how she recovered from that, and how she plowed through it, kept her family together, became, obviously she's a wonderful mother. I mean, Chelsea Clinton is an admirable woman, and a great grandmother, and all those things. And it was like she was afraid, to open up, afraid to really use the woman card, to really say, that millions of women, that I represent millions of women, and I'm going to break through that glass ceiling so that all of you can follow me. Never said that.
Not till last night.
Yeah.
Right?
Or this morning. Yeah.
Or this morning.
Yeah.
As we finish up here, it's just worth noting, one of the things that bothered me about Donald Trump was the people that he surrounded himself with. Now, I understand that, he had 10-foot pole marks all over him. He was tough to get anybody on board. I guess Jeff Sessions was kind of early to that party. But apart from him, the guys who you see a lot are Rudy Giuliani and Chris Christie. Now, I happen to loathe Chris Christie. I think he's a dirty politician. I think and when I say dirty, I mean borderline corrupt. I can't give you a specific area of corruption. I know he is a hard-knuckle politician in the sense that his fingerprints are all over Bridgegate.
Yeah, I was going to say that bridge thing isn't enough of a...
That's pretty much. In the federal government, in the federal court, his closest employees said he knew and authorized the closing of the lanes for political reasons. So there's no way he can get it. He'll never win another federal election, period.
He may not have to. He's going to have a lot of power in the Trump administration, but
I don't think he'll get approved by the Senate if he tries to be Attorney General or anything else. I'd be really, been surprised before. Trump's president.
Yeah. He is a vengeful guy. Rudy Giuliani, I don't know who this guy is now, Rudy Giuliani. This is the guy who cleaned up New York, Jim Avila?
I think it's generally conceded that Rudy Giuliani was a pretty good mayor, okay, and that he handled himself well during 9/11. The impression I got and get to this day of Rudy Giuliani is he's just trying to desperately hang on. And he saw an opening, and that Donald Trump in the Donald Trump organization, and, and he was friends with Donald Trump because they're both from New York. And he's looking to be relevant still. And he played a big gamble, and he won the gamble. He's relevant again. He could land up being the FBI director or something like that.
Oh, that's so great.
Well, the FBI...
Can I go home and get back in bed now?
Yeah. The FBI worries me a bit particularly, but it worries me in the general sense that the entire government under a Trump administration, again, I'm just going by the kind of Trump that we've seen leading up. For all I know, he'll reboot and be great. But I worry about the old J. Edgar Hoover FBI, the FBI that was targeting Americans, the FBI that was used to settle personal feuds, the kind of Chris Christie FBI that, where you see Bridgegate, but it's played out with the FBI. The government can ruin your life without ever putting you behind bars with a conviction.
Which they kind of just did to Hillary.
They can do a lot of damage, so I worry a lot about that.
I saw today, though, that Josh Earnest said that the presidential spokesman said that it's not out of the realm of possibility that it's not ruling out that President Obama would pardon Hillary in advance, so that she's protected from any kind of any kind of
vengeance.
Lock her up stuff.
Well, and that goes to the point that even if you never convict Hillary Clinton, pulling her in on hearing after hearing, you can ruin her life that way. Just the same way that a lawyer can sue you for whatever.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They could do that. I doubt they're going to do it. They beat her. You know, they're going to let her fade into the sunset.
No, he said the first thing he was going to do is lock her up. They chanted it.
That was to energize his base, I think.
Yeah, I don't think he's really going to do it. But, you know, I'd be surprised. And you skipped. I know we're.
Yeah, please. No, please.
You skipped over Jeff Sessions quickly. Jeff Sessions, look into, you know, I Googled Jeff Sessions and his work as U.S. Attorney in Alabama and in racism. He was, you know, and the details off the top of my head are a little sketchy, so that's why I'm asking you to look it up. But I interviewed him in the beginning of the immigration reform, and he was against it so badly. And I asked him about his problems in his office at the U.S. Attorney's Office, where he, in fact, was accused, and I believe sued, by an African-American attorney who he discriminated against and put in the who was prominent, if my memory serves right, and was like put in the, you know, the guy in the movie Office Space with the stapler.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
That's what he did to this guy. You know, he made him the irrelevant guy with the stapler. He has real trouble as far as treating everybody equal.
Assistant U.S. Attorney Thomas Figures, who is black, said that Sessions called him boy and once lectured him to be careful what you say to white folks. Sessions was even allegedly to have said that the Klan was okay until I learned they smoked pot. He claimed it to be a joke when the comment was presented to him during his confirmation process.
Yeah, I think that's the one. He didn't have a good reputation. Of course, he's from Alabama.
I was going to say.
He was an early adopter on Donald Trump, and he'll no doubt have a place in this White House. I'm most worried about Mike Pence. I think Mike Pence is a very cool operator. He is that doesn't bother me. I mean, I think Obama's a cool operator, but he is a real right-wing guy. He's someone who has worked against, not only worked against gay rights, worked against Planned Parenthood in the state of Indiana to not only cut off the funding, but he wanted to divert the funds to those gay re-education programs where they take people who are homosexual and they convince them to be heterosexual. Now, if that isn't a waste of taxpayer money,
I know.
Not to mention all the other things it is. So watch the bouncing ball in the Trump administration. There's a lot of stuff happening, and I'm worried very much about Mike Pence. That's just one thing. I haven't even talked about foreign policy and all the rest. Hey, look, I want to say this. A lot of people listen to the show, and we don't talk a lot about politics, and you listen for all the different conversations. We always feel if we're talking to somebody and we're interested, then it's interesting to you. We've had Jim Avila on before when the whole Brian Williams thing was going down. If you haven't listened to that, you ought to go back and listen to that episode. We don't talk about politics at all. We just talk about Brian Williams and as his world came caving in. But we felt this moment in time just demanded that we do more shows that really at least addressed or dipped our toe in that water. Maybe that was a decision. Heather, I know, was not as much a fan of it as I am. But we appreciate you staying with us through it. And as always, you can come and go as you want. We've got some great episodes ahead that have nothing to do with politics. Yay. And we may also touch base with some politics along the way, too, because it's clearly an important time in this nation's history. Jim Avila, it's a privilege to have you here. You're an award-winning journalist. I have great respect for the work you do and your perspective. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for asking me, my friend.
All right.
Good to see you.
Jim Avila, Heather, come on. Jim Avila.
Oh, okay. Let me just. I want to thank you for all the ways that you support my friends on the Edge podcast. And if you haven't already, why don't you show your support and subscribe? What's the matter with you? Go to Edge Show. Oh, shit, it's Edge Dash. What's with the dash? Stupid. All right, I want to thank you for all the ways that you support my friends on the Edge podcast. Show your support and leave something on their website, edge-show.com. Stupid. Why is there a dash?
Get more of The Edge on Stitcher and iTunes, or go to our website, edge-show.com.